Good morning, good evening, and welcome to World of Warships. My name is Robin, and today we will be reviewing the Tier 10 British Premium Destroyer Druid in a battle sent to me by another content creator that you may have heard of, Caliber. But first of all, thank you very much for tuning in the video. I really appreciate it, and I hope you would enjoy your time here. The match we are about to review is a long overdue promise that I made to Caliber a few months ago, and I finally had the time to make the edits and to record the commentary for this fantastic game. So, without further ado, let's get comfortable and take the Druid to battle. And here we are, on the map Heaven, Domination Mode. The setting for this battle is as follow: Tier 8, 9 and 10 ships, 3 destroyers, 3 cruisers, 5 battleship and a Tier 8 carrier on each teams. Not a bad lineup at all for the Druid. Caliber, which I will refer to as Kala from now on, just as a convenience for this commentary, has gotten himself a centered spawn on the southern part of the map, and after a few seconds of hesitation, checking the position and heading of allied destroyers is going to take a final course for the B cap. Now, if you have not been paying attention, the Druid is not your everyday destroyer. The ship is part of only 3 destroyers in the game that do not boast any torpedoes, the other 2 being Friesland and Ragnar, though there is yet another limitation imposed on the Druid. The ship only has access to armor-piercing shells. On the other hand, a very large HP pool, improved ricochet angles and short fuse AP, the access to repair party, short duration smokescreen and short range sonar comes to compensate for the above drawbacks, on top of having, well, an extremely fast reload time. Druid is by any means a gunboat, boasting a full frontal turret layout, and if left unchecked, has the potential of dealing some serious damage to basically any targets, which Kala will generously demonstrate in this battle. But let's get back to the action at hand. Closing in towards the cap, Kala realizes that there is no friendly planes flying around at all, indicating that the Lexington might be AFK, while the enemy Implacable is already striking the Zeiton. But shortly after, torpedo bombers take off, our CV is up and running, although it is now too late for any sort of early spotting on that flank, though this is not going to prevent Kala from pushing in the cap regardless. While the hydroacoustic search of Druid really is not a great tool for cap contesting due to its very limited range, it can always come in handy against torpedoes. Kala is also not running the radio location skill, so if the cap is contested by any means, it may prove difficult to pinpoint the location of that enemy destroyer, especially considering the 6.6 kilometer concealment. But The friendly Z-23 is coming in as a backup, and right now, Kalle is also scouting a potential location to smoke up and start firing. Another piece of important information is that the enemy Ragnar has been scouted at sea, which I'm sure removed a lot of concern from Kalle's head, and with just a few seconds left for the capture, he is not going to waste any more time and make Druid's guns sing. Smoke screen deployed, but notice the extremely short action time of the consumable, 10 seconds only, barely enough to create a few puffs, and Kalle, going forward a bit too hard, is eventually going to slide out of the smoke screen. This is not a bad thing though, because just as he's about to reverse back into it, he spots the enemy Vampire 2 that has crept into cap with him. Vampire is a scary destroyer in terms of DPM, and Kalle makes the right move by stepping out of line of sight with it. This will cost him just a few points of HP as the Pommern disengages behind the island, but he's managed to reconceal. Convenient positioning will allow Kalle to start firing again, making good use of the terrain for that extra few thousand points of damage on the fleeing Pommern, but he definitely needs to deal with this Vampire now. Hydro picks up something, but Vampire is not known to be a massive torpedo threat either, and it seems that only the quick sight of Kalle's Druid had him running away from the cap within its crawling smoke generator. But there is a Selim escorting Kalle on this flank, and if we look at the minimap, there is a good chance that he's in range for his radar. Unfortunately, that is not the case, Vampire doing a great job of baiting the use of that consumable and getting away scot-free. At least the British counterpart is not posing any threats to the cap anymore, so Kalle can resume firing, the next target being yet another Tier 9 German battleship, the Prinz Ruprecht. Implacable rocket planes are coming in over the cap though. It is time to smoke up and focus the sector. Druid's AA, while not benefiting from any defensive fire consumable, will do just fine against Tier 8 carriers, but it's always better to play it safe and conserve HP, especially early game. Notice how the smokescreen is not getting any real use so far. Kalle has only been using them as a distraction, albeit maybe not always willingly, as most of the time an inconvenient spotting will force his hand. But once again, making use of the terrain to remain undetected and avoiding some torpedoes, he resumes firing on the Ruprecht that seems to have ran aground. This flank is pretty strong, let's admit. The majority of the team is here and has the enemy force greatly outnumbered, although the right side of the map is not looking too hot right now. While friendly Shimakaze seems to be doing a great job stalling the enemy's push and providing some great spotting, this is not a position the Japanese destroyer wants to maintain for too long, with a Stalingrad radar and implacable planes looming around. Kalle is aware of this, and as soon as the Ruprecht goes down, he starts making maneuvers to get out of this cesspool and move on to the next plan. And well, that plan won't take too long to take form. Enemy Ragnar, which already secured the sea cap, is spotted out of position. A direct confrontation with this pan-European destroyer would actually be an even fight for the Druid. Ragnar boasting some impressively accurate 150mm guns. And let's not forget, the enemy Vampire, whom last known position is now well outdated. But the team needs to advance. The more time Kalle's team wastes trying to chase and destroy the remaining enemies on this flank, the more the enemy team has to do the exact same thing on the opposite one. Although I think that Kalle has set his mind on a specific task, that is hunting and destroying the Ragnar, considering the intercepting course he's taking and the opportunistic potshot he's firing. But the further north Kalle will head, the more opportunities will present themselves. So far, enemy Bourgogne and Ibuki will definitely loiter around and slug it out with the Georgia, Soyuz and Thunderer, and Kalle has no interest on chasing these targets anyway. This does not change the fact that, in a way, the center of the map is completely free to take, opening the door to Charlie and possibly even more. The only ship in a way, now that we also see the whereabouts of Vampire, well, is the Ragnar. On the other flank, Shimakaze just went down, and it seems that the enemy team is staging an aggressive push now that only a low HP Stalingrad, Lepanto and Rune remain to defend D. With the enemy team getting ahead on points and kills, Kaller's determination to make something happen becomes quite strong. It doesn't take a genius to guess where Ragnar could be, and even without APF, that duel eventually starts. But oh boy, is Kaller ready for it. The first two salvos already land before the Pan-European destroyer reacts, thinking that he was going to engage a concealed torpedo boat such as the Z-23. He only realizes now that he was the one being hunted the whole time, and, well, the short fuse AP is making an absolute number. 24 pens later, Ragnar is shredded, but Kaller also had to trade a good chunk of his HP, as well as obviously revealing his location to the rest of the enemy team. Considering that implacable bombers are airborne nearby, a cautionary smoke is laid down, but once again as a mere distraction. The sea cap is now open. Open, but not undefended. There remains a Hindenburg, backed up by a Stalingrad, Amagi and Marco Polo, not to mention the enemy CV, obviously. But friendly Rune and Lepanto are still willing to fight, and Kaller is actually in a decent crossfire position would the previously mentioned enemy ship try to attack. Speaking of which, here is Hindenburg, and she is low HP. A few seconds taken to check his surroundings and to get closer to cover, and Kaller opens up. While he still has 2 heals available, 13,000 HP is not the capital you want to start with while brawling a Hindi, but he's a destroyer. They are much more maneuverable than expected, and he is able to skillfully duke the first return fire. The thing with Hindenburg though is that she reloads faster than your average heavy cruiser, and Kaller has to take some cover. A quick sector reinforcement to try and defend Lepanto against implacable torpedo bombers, just to highlight the situational awareness Kaller has, and the fire is maintained. Unfortunately, Hindenburg gets away with a sliver of HP, while Lepanto does not. And that is not a good thing. Stone the crows indeed. Kaller is not happy about that Hindi surviving, and while Lepanto still manages to take the enemy Bourgogne down with him, his team is not only starting to lose the already weak footing they had on D, he is now also the first in line for a cap that seriously needs taking. One could argue that the A cap is now only defended by Vampire, and that remaining friendly forces at B should make a push for it, but this will be set back not only by the Hindenburg destroying the Georgia, but also the enemy Siliwangi keeping Z-23 and Soyuz busy. Second frag of the game, and that is an important one. Kaller is running Andrew Cunningham, and that second kill will provide with an extra charge of all consumable, which he instantly uses to repair his ship and compensate for the stubborn Hindenburg's last salvo. Unfortunately, the German cruiser going down does not open up the door to sea in the slightest, as the staged push we were talking about is being acted on by the enemy team. Stalingrad, charging right through the gap, not only covers the entirety of the cap with her radar, but she also has Kaller in range. The threat is too high, and he has to take preemptive maneuvers not to get caught in the open, though he is far from abandoning the flank. The opening on A we talked about earlier, there's a potential play to make there. But before that, he is going to make his retreat as painful as possible for the Soviet cruiser. Albeit, when you are poking the bear at a rate of 4 shells every 1.5 seconds, you are bound to get some unwanted attention, and the crossfire Kaller was creating is about to get crossfired as well. He is out of the Stalingrad's gun reach, but not out of her radar. And Vampire, still loitering around the A-cap, is ready to abuse that. Although team play goes both ways, and while Stalingrad is assisting Vampire against Kaller, a friendly Lexington has dive bombers heading straight for the British destroyer. Don't pay attention to the implacable showing up on the right, that comes later. Vampire, in his bitter realization that he may not be as cheeky as he thought he was, proceeds to run aground in an attempt to evade both Kala's angry return fire and Lexington opportunistic bombs, leading to his demise and offering the cap. But he also offered much more. Dead ahead of Kala is the implacable, and while the team player in him is screaming to head for the cap and assist Thunderer, the situation is critical enough that bagging a CV kill would undoubtedly be very beneficial to everyone, especially given the fact that the enemy Siliwangi has the exact same opening on our friendly Lexington. Well, Siliwangi also has 4 guns in 2 turrets, although he is a tier 8, Kala's in a tier 10, and, well, the difference in firepower is going to speak for itself in the next few seconds. Yeah. Isn't that therapeutic? I mean, either Implacable accepted her fate or was completely oblivious of Kala's position, trying to focus down the Thunderer in C. Either way, that is 16 citadels and the enemy CV out of commission, with the A cap being flipped as cherry on top. But the fight is not over. Kala's team is finally back in the point lead, but this may not hold for long. Both friendly Thunderer and the enemy Stalingrad are in a brawl to the death, and Lexington, trying to flee the Pan-Asian destroyer, is running straight into the Amagi and Marco Polo, which also happen to be ready to capture the decap. Friendly Thunderer goes down, leaving the dirty job of finishing Stalingrad to Kala's Druid and the Z-23, although Stalingrad is angled and Kala can only shoot armor piercing. This will result in quite the frustrating stalemate, adding a bit of wonky dispersion on top, and Stalingrad did not take any damage until the Z sends her to port. The point lead, though, is maintained, and with the map mostly cleared up, the C cap is basically free to grab, which will ensure a win if more ships go down. But we also have a long trip back to the action. Lexington, with the help of Soyuz, takes care of the Siliwangi, though the friendly CV is not out of harm's way. Quite the opposite, actually, as the combined fire of Amagi and Marco Polo will eventually send him below. Another small concern is that the Soyuz isn't particularly healthy either, and may just also go down if he has to face both enemy battleships at once. Granted, now that the majority of the caps are held, the enemy team will have a very hard time taking the lead back within less than 4 minutes. I don't think any of this prevents us from spotting the elephant in the room, though. Kala is on 4 kills, and considering the course he's taking, the fact that he still has both smokes and heal, and also a hell of a lot more salvos to dish out, he is hungry for a Kraken. I mean, who would not be in that position? Another good thing is that both enemy battleships, in an attempt to fight the Soviet battleship, will probably be giving juicy broadsides to Kala, and that is exactly the sort of crossfire he is going to take once again, opening up as soon as the Amagi is in range. Now, this does not mean that he is going all in. There is a definite danger of him overextending and having both remaining ships focus him down, so he is keeping a comfortable distance where he will be harder to hit and present much less of an attractive target than Soyuz currently is. And yep, Marco Polo is not falling for that trick, and even if the salvo has the only effect of spraying the Druid's bow with seawater, this still prompts Kala to smoke up. And now I feel like I am repeating myself, as this smoke is once again just but a decoy. It's highly interesting to see the potential effect it can have on the attention span of enemy players. One must think that destroyer is in smoke. I'll just go ahead and find another target. And they may not realize that Kalle is just charging straight out, guns blazing. High caliber pops up with 190,000 damage dealt only, but with guns this seems very reasonable in a tier 8 to 10 battle. He's also bagged the Confederate medal earlier on and maintains this trend of withering down any targets that presents the best profile. At this point, the game is secured. With 2 minutes left on the timer and only a few dozen points to go, the win is guaranteed, especially the moment Kalle steps in the decap to rub it in. The Sovietsky Soyuz does go down though, reminding us that the fight never really is over until the scoreboard appears. And while the Soviet battleship sacrifice was not in vain at all, it also gave Kalle just enough time to farm the remaining HP off the broadside Amagi, get himself a deserved Kraken Unleashed, and close the chapter of this game on Heaven with a victory. 215,000 points of damage dealt, over 700,000 credits gained, and a total of 16,000 XP earned. Kalle achieved Confederate, Kraken Unleashed, and High Caliber out of nearly 600 shells and 16 citadels, capturing and assisting in the capture of 3 zones, shooting 10 aircrafts down, and sinking 5 ships in the process. 2700 base XP is a score everyone should be happy about, especially in a rather close game like this one. And while the Implacable provided with a generous offering, Kalle also dealt substantial damage to both enemy destroyers and many other battleships and cruisers. To summarize, this was a great display of positioning, target prioritization, opportunistic pushes, and situational awareness. I have to say thank you, Kalle, for sending me this game. I had a blast reviewing it. But people, this video is now coming to an end. Thank you so much for watching it all the way through. I hope that you enjoyed your time, and if you did, give the video a thumbs up. If you did not, well, thumbs down, but stay tuned anyway. As always, there will be more content to come about World of Warships. Also, please go sub to Kalle if you haven't yet. Anyway, until next time, you have a good one, and you take it easy.